Hello, seventh graders from Beehive School. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today, and welcome to our second online class. I hope that you are adapting well to this new methodology, to this new way of working. And of course, I totally prefer looking at every one of you because I really like having contact with all of my students. But because of the situation that is going on right now in the country, it's better if we just stick to digital sources. So thank you for coming to our science class. And this is a class for week 11 that we were going to have. And it's lesson 6, the rock cycle. So today we're going to be taking a look at some pages in the book, pages 62 to 65. So before we start with everything, I have a couple of directions for you. Before we start, get your physical or digital book, enter to the Google Classroom, and make sure to download the Word document that I attached to the Google Classroom post from today. Save it inside the science folder that you should already have at your desktop. And please name it this way, include your code, your name, grade, and section. There you have one example. My code will be number 8, my name, Krishna Ochoa, and Leslie, grade and section 7th A. And I have a huge observation for each one of you. I noticed that many students did not have the appropriate name in the last Word document that you uploaded to the Google Classroom last time. So please make sure that your document has these specifications. That is part of the format that is specified in the rubric. And if you do not have it this way, then you are going to have less points in the final grade. So make sure to have it just like this. Alright, so as we move, remember to take notes on the Word document. That is something very important that you don't have to forget, because that is going to help you out to clarify all of the content that we are studying here. And remember that we have to begin with our end in mind. And for lesson 6, the rock cycle, our end in mind is the following. Explain how rocks are not lost or gained, but recycled through the rock cycle. All right, this is the first thing that you need to write on your Word document. So please make sure to write it down. If you need an extra time, you can pause the video and you can come back later on when you are done with your end in mind in the Word document. All right, so first of all, we have a very big question. What is the rock cycle? The rock cycle is a series of processes in Earth that slowly changes rocks from one kind to another. You have to notice that Earth is in constant change. And of course, rocks are interacting with several forces and several resources from the environment. So with time, of course, it will generate for rocks to change their chemical composition, becoming a different rock from what they were originally. Here I have one example of something that can actually change a rock. Weathering can break down granite that later on turns into sandstone. You will usually find granite at a mountain. So if it starts heavily raining, and then pieces of that granite from the mountain are going to fall down. Later on, when they just remain on the ground, they are going to turn into sandstone. Another important thing that you have to notice is that a cycle is something that is constantly repeating. It has a series of steps, but that are going to constantly repeat. I'm going to show you an example of a stone mountain. It is located close to Atlanta in Georgia. It is made of granite and it was formed underground millions of years ago. Over millions of years, several forces have pushed it upwards. Weathering has changed it. This is related to what I was mentioning before. So the mountain that you can observe right there is made of granite. But how was granite formed in first place? Well, it was formed underground, and it was part of the rock cycle that we are going to see just later on. So after granite was formed underground, there were several forces and um, several processes that pushed it upwards. And after it went upwards, it created a mountain that we can see right there. And something interesting that you can notice is that it does not have any trees. That is caused because of weathering. So just example that I was giving you before, when it heavily rains, then it is going to affect the environment and of course the mountain. And another factor why it has changed so much is because of human activity. Remember that humans constantly chop trees in order to use them to create other sources of energy or in order to create other materials, right? So here we have a picture of what the rock cycle looks like. This is a picture that you can find in your book, but that I'm going to be explaining here a little bit more, and it already has all of the answers that you need. We're going to start with our igneous rock. It's right there on our top left corner. So you can notice that first we have an igneous rock, which can be part of a mountain, such as it is in the picture. So because of weathering and erosion, then we are going to see that some sediments are going to start dropping down. So when they go down, they are going to create sedimentary rocks, which later on, through deposition, heat, and pressure, then those rocks are going to change into metamorphic rocks. So as you can notice here, the rocks have changed already. We started with an igneous rock, then we have sedimentary rocks, and lastly we have a metamorphic rock. So later on, if metamorphic rocks are exposed to melting, what I mean by that is that the rocks are exposed to a very high temperature, just like lava. Then the metamorphic rocks are going to change one more time, and they're going to change back to igneous rocks after they are pushed upwards, such as in the example we previously saw with the mountain. This is the normal cycle, let's call it like that. But you can notice that there are different arrows in different directions because it happens that in the rock cycle it does not necessarily have to follow these certain steps, but it can move from one to another. For example, and from the igneous rock to metamorphic rocks. Can it happen in that way? Yes, it can happen. So if we apply heat and pressure, it's possible to change directly an igneous rock to a metamorphic rock. Another example that I can give you is, for example, from sedimentary rocks to magma and lava. So if sedimentary rocks are exposed to a high pressure and temperature, then it will cause them to melt. So from sedimentary rocks, we can move directly to volcanic activity and igneous rocks. So this is an example of how the rock cycle works and how our different minerals form different rocks. So that was a very brief summary of the 4 pages that you have to read for this week. And now we have our evaluation. It says read pages 62 to 65 and complement the summary that you already have. I already mentioned most of the information that you can find in those pages, but it's always good to double check the information that's there so you can complement it a little bit more. And besides that, we have to answer the questions. How are the rock cycle and plate tectonics related? You will find that in your book. If I'm not wrong, you will find that in page 65. You have the other question as well. How is the conservation of matter related to the rock cycle? So let me explain you a little bit about the conservation of matter. It states that matter cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. So how can you relate that specific principle to the rock cycle. So once you are done with that, remember to upload the Word document with your summary and images to the Google Classroom. Remember to add images so it looks a little bit more colorful and it calls more your attention, all right? And lastly, we have the rubric for the evaluation. For the format of the document, including name and all of the specifications that I gave you, will have 2 points. Meaningful content, 2 points. Complete content, 2 points. Images, 2 points. Order, 1 point. And delivered on time, 1 point. Alright guys, so that'll be it for today's lesson. It's been a pleasure being here with you. And I truly hope that every one of you is doing well at home. Remember, if it's not extremely necessary to go out, please stay at home because right now we're entering a very dangerous situation in the country. But I know that we are going to overcome the situation, and of course, we're going to keep on moving forward. So, one more time, stay safe, and thank you a lot for coming to my class. Goodbye. I will see you next week.